By the time January rolls around, all most people can think of is how far they would like to be away from the sub-zero temperatures and freezing winds of the upper Midwest. In this way, humans and birds are no different. While for us, planning escape can be as simple as throwing a dart at a map of the Caribbean and booking a flight, birds have significantly less access to accommodations like the internet and plane travel, and therefore must take flight in search of the abundant resources of warmer climates. For thousands of years, birds have routinely followed the same migratory paths, traveling distances sometimes spanning the diameter of the Earth, and have consistently ended up in the same places. Until relatively recently, it was a mystery how birds were able to navigate migratory pathways so precisely, or even to be able to return to their nest after feeding in the open ocean. We now know that birds use a series of what are referred to as navigational maps to migrate with such consistency. These maps have traditionally included a physical map and a magnetic map. A physical map uses terrestrial landmarks such as mountains, lakes, and rivers, as well as the sun, moon, and stars to ascertain a bird's position on the Earth, much like mariners of times before the advent of GPS. Some species possess a magnetic map and can navigate using the Earth's magnetic field, which they are able to detect through a small amount of magnetic mineral known as magnetite located in their beak.
A recent study conducted by scientists Paget et al. Suggests that birds also utilize a third olfactory map based on sense of smell. This contributes to navigation over distances. In this study, nesting Scopoles shearwaters, piscivorous seabirds, or seabirds that feed on fish, were affixed with GPS trackers and assigned one of three different groups: a control group without manipulation, a magnetic group, and an olfactory group. Birds in the magnetic group had a powerful neodymium magnet attached to their heads to interfere with the natural process of navigation by magnetic field. Birds in the olfactory group were deprived of their sense of smell by washing the olfactory mucosa via the nares with 4 milliliters of 4% zinc sulfate heptahydrate dissolved in water. Zinc sulfate treatment acts by causing necrosis of nerve cells in the olfactory mucosa, and which results in anosmia, or the inability to smell. This condition persists until the cells of the mucosa regenerate, a process that takes several weeks. These birds were monitored over a span of a month, and behavior was defined in 3 categories: resting, foraging, and flying, based on the average flight speed and duration of movement patterns.
While there are no generalized effects evident in the experiment as a whole, several specific effects were noted, especially regarding the zinc sulfate-treated birds. A distribution of their flight patterns en route to the foraging sites shows that anosmic, or unable to perceive odor, birds were much more erratic in their paths, as opposed to the comparative simplicity of the routes of the other groups. It was also found that birds without sense of smell remained much closer to the coast after 10 kilometers of flight, as opposed to the other birds whose paths were much more direct, indicating an increased reliance on knowledge of a physical map of the local environment. Though this could be attributed to discomfort experienced during the zinc sulfate treatment, there were no other observed behavioral abnormalities, indicating that the only factor contributing to this phenomenon was their inability to smell. Zinc sulfate-treated birds also exhibited a much higher degree of variability in the angle of their return flight from foraging grounds, with 5 of the 6 birds taking a course perpendicular from the coast, indicating an unfamiliarity with the local region and weak physical map, one insufficient for the entire return flight. These findings significantly advance our understanding of pelagic, open-sea navigation by species of seabirds. It helps us gain insight into how species other than ourselves perceive the world around them, and how they have developed their own complex mechanisms in response to the tremendous challenge of consistent and precise navigation over unfamiliar territory. Having multiple methods for navigation is also evolutionarily beneficial, as being able to adapt and overcome is essential to the success of organisms as well as entire species, and guarantees that scenes of birds' backup plans for migration, such as this one, remain rare.